I used to go into music stores and try 4 or 5 new Rovner dark ligatures and be amazed at the difference. And I think this is a clue to us as clarinet players as to partially why there is so much variation between reeds or something as complicated as clarinets. I mean, part of it is on the companies, but it's also very difficult, and we are incredibly sensitive. In ways, as clarinet players, we are sensitive in some of the right ways and in some of the wrong ways. Anyway, I think Rovner ligatures are a nice clue into the evolution of equipment in part, and how the material has gotten in part worse over time. This was my first ligature. It's a Rovner ligature that I'll show you. It's different. I've only ever seen one just like it. And we're going to try a bunch of different Rovner ligatures, even some that are of the same age, the same design, and there are striking differences, be it in terms of the break-in process or just the feedback that I get that can allow me to drive the instrument in an orchestra. So. I need too much embouchure for that double C. I'm really picky with staccato, and for me, there is still too much delay in that response. That being said, that is one of the best Rovner ligatures I've ever played. There is a density, a solidity, a tangibility to the sound from a distance. Soaring over the orchestra, there really is something good. To me, I still think I'm painting too much with one color, but it's cool. I like it. Let me show you part of why I think it's quite a good ligature. It's really hard for me to compress this. I really can't squeeze that. If I compare with a different, you can see I can squeeze that a lot more. So the tensile strength, so to speak, is stronger with that first one. Let me show you that second one. In some ways, I feel I get a more focused sound with that one, but the response is just not negotiable for me. This is, I believe, from the 90s. I think the first one is from the 80s. It's a thicker leather material, the first one. This one is definitely a polyester material. It's very smooth and really small dots. And generally, there are a couple of these I've played that I really like. I'm going to try a few more of this same generation. So I was able to make it work there, but I had to put way too much embouchure pressure. I started to feel my sinuses collapsing. I didn't like that at all. Let's try another one. This is the same generation. This one's just a little bit more worn. So as it's worn out, you hear there's maybe a little bit more glow to the sound, a lot more focus. Amazing how different from the last one, and it's the same generation. The main issue is still response. In doing large intervals, I had to do too much manipulation. All right, let's try another one of that same generation. Don't mistake dark for dead. I think that there are too many issues when it comes to that with response. Sometimes these Rovners, when they're new, they don't actually hold the reed on as well as once they're older and they've broken in. And so there's a problem where the reed is maybe sliding if there's concavity in the table. Or there's some swelling in the middle of the reed. And that's another reason why some players refuse to play Rovner ligatures. I think they can be really good if you get a good one. They can be really good. One of those Rovners is certainly a really great chamber or mic'd solo. This has a texturized material. It feels rough. It's different from some of the ones that they create today, like the Mark III. I don't really like the feedback with that one. It feels very fuzzy. I'm not a big fan of that sound. It's actually very bright for me. It's far brighter than just about any metal ligature I've played. Let's try another of that same generation. This is a Rovner Light of the same generation. So full disclosure, I'm really not used to how any of these respond. The response is very different from my preferred vintages of Bonade ligatures, but that one's pretty cool. Ironically, even though it's the light, I actually think it's a darker sound, at least from a distance. Let's try the Rovner Eddie Daniels II, what is today the Rovner Versa, with just a couple differences. I'm sorry for making those faces. I just don't really like the sound up top. It gets so crunchy and thin for me. By the way, that's with the thick plate in, and I took off the thin plates on the side because those things are stupid. And with the material contacting the reed, for me that's the best configuration. I've just never really been a fan of those. In ways, I can drive it better with the metal, giving me more density in the sound, giving me a little more feedback, but it's kind of the worst of both worlds for me. I've never really liked a material ligature with metal combination. This is a vintage very similar to that first one, except it's really stretchy. There's no tensile strength. Let's see what that does. There's no solidity, and I just feel lost the whole time. I can't feel the center or core of the sound. And that's, again, a generation I generally like better. It's thicker, a little bit thicker material, but when it's that stretchy, it doesn't work for me. Let's try the very first generation of Mark III. This is very different than the modern Mark III. It just has little R's on both sides, and as you see, they start to rub off. This is one of my favorite Rovner ligatures. I have a really weird movie analogy for this one. So people ask me sometimes, what's my favorite Star Wars movie? Expecting me to say The Empire Strikes Back. But I like the original. I like the 1977 Star Wars. Because The Empire Strikes Back is a darker, more mature film, but it just makes me want to watch other films of the period, say by Martin Scorsese or Francis Ford Coppola. And when it's that, Star Wars is best, I think, as lighter fare, say in the original, or even in ways with the Ewoks in Return of the Jedi. I think about this is, in many ways, this is the most orchestral, most focused ligature Rovner ever made, possibly, but it just makes me want to play on a Bonade ligature. So, as you'll notice, the tensile strength is very, 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 very high. I really can't move this. And I think that's a good test for Rovner ligatures. This is a generation also with quite a bit of tensile strength. I can squeeze it a little bit. This one is really never been played ever. It's got the old style screw design, the short screw design, and this is good, but it's inflexible. I think that's the closest Rovner ever got to a Gigliotti ligature. It's one color the whole time, and I can't really change it. Might be good in some orchestras, but it's not for me. I don't believe this is the Rovner Light. It's a generation, probably in the 90s, when they were just trying to make it easier for you to line the reed up, and I'll come back to that. This is very similar smooth material as some of the first ones I played. For me, that's the polar opposite of the last one. If I put a mic, an inch away from my horn and play a whole CD like that, like some people do today, I think this is great. If I'm playing publicly, I think I just get a really small sound, and I have to work in ways that are constricting in my throat, in my sinuses, with my palate all around. I can't really push the sound, but it is very clean, very round, whatever that means. Just a couple more. This is the first generation of Rovner Light, and this material is extremely thin. I think back in the day, Rovner wanted two different materials, one that was brighter, one that was darker. And now the difference between dark and light in their ligatures is just cut out versus not, which doesn't make any sense to me. This one is very bright, and I think it's actually a good lead alto or pop alto ligature. I feel like I'm David Sanborn when I'm playing that. But again, I think that was their idea, to have not just a different design, but a different type of leather, dark versus light. And today it's the same. Interesting. Okay, this is the earliest Rovner I've seen. Check out the screw design. It is a completely different screw mechanism. This is all just one screw, and you can actually completely take this out. It's not reversible like some of the other ones. There's no cutout in the middle of the reed at all, so you have trouble lining the reed up. I really like this one. I think it's pretty cool. So if the OG Mark III is like a bonade, this is like a Casper ligature. It's very, very resonant. It's the most resonant, very thin material, but high tensile strength. This is one of the only Rovners that I can actually play. One more. This, once again, has no cutouts for the reed, but it's got the short screw design, the knobby screw design, which would get phased out at some point, I think in the 90s. So I think we found what the problem is. This screw mechanism is less resonant. It's more complicated, and there's just not as much sound. Ironically, it actually sounds a lot brighter. You would think that the more resonant one would be brighter, but this one is brighter. So I spent a lot of time talking about how much I like some older Rovner ligatures. I don't have any modern Rovner ligatures to play, except for one. A lot of the modern material Rovner ligatures I'm just not a big fan of, but I do have the Rovner Platinum. In a lot of ways, I like that the best. It's certainly, I can get more sound. The response is more of what I like. I get more complexity, and I can drive it more of like I'm used to with my bonade ligatures. The main issue that I have is I'm getting a headache. There's a depth to the sound that it's just, it feels like the overtones are stuck. And this happens to me with so much modern equipment. I would say over 90% of modern mouthpieces, horns, ligatures give me a slight headache. And I think it's just my sinuses shutting down. I alluded to it early on. If you're not sensitive to that, I think this is a great ligature. But for me, I need something that captures a more complete overtone spectrum, and it's just easier on everything in here. I think of the embouchure as more than just this. I think about all the muscles that are connecting down in here, into the eyes, into the sinuses. Our embouchure is a lot more complex than what we're taught in band.